Okay, welcome. Welcome to this live meeting. Hey, look, let me put this. Hello everybody. Welcome. Waiting for our other creators to join. Hey, hey, Ziad, how are you?
Doing well, doing well. How's your day been so far?
It's been pretty chill. Been looking forward to the live. I'm hosting it today, first time, so it was a big deal for me. So yeah, we
Awesome.
are still waiting for Dom. I invited Dom. Yeah, here you go. I need to accept Dom. Hey Dom, how you doing?
Hey all, I'm doing awesome. Yourself, how's your life?
Yeah, I was just talking to Ziad about it earlier. Yeah, excited. It's kind of a big deal for me to be here hosting it. So yeah, I hope it's gonna be a good one, and I'll dive right into it. So the first question for Dom: why should someone, or let me ask you this first, like, why did you learn how to code? How did it go for you?
How did it go for me? So I'll be honest and say that it wasn't my plan to like start learning to code or get a software engineering go job immediately. It was more like I was back then in Croatia because I am from Croatia and I finished my high school. And the question was like, which college should I go to? And because college is free in Croatia and everybody goes, so it's not like in the US where you get in debt and you need to pay it for so long or anything. In Croatia, it's free, so like everybody goes. And I was like, yeah, like computer science sounds cool, so I'm gonna do that. Like yeah, like I always got had interest in maths, in anything logical and everything, so that definitely made sense. And I love technology, so yeah, computer science it is. And basically, since it was the best computer science college in Croatia, companies start to hunt you immediately, and like you can get a job probably like on first or second year of college. I got it on my third year of college, and it was I don't know. It was just like a normal thing to do for me while I was studying on the college. I started doing coding for some companies, and that's how I got in basically. So yeah, I would say a pretty random. And then I actually realized I was questioning myself: do I like it or not? Is that for me? Because that's something like it was served to me. Hey, here you go, start coding, have a great salary and everything. But I was questioning myself: is that actually for me? And I worked first like with Java and some other languages, and I didn't like them that much. But yeah, then I discovered my field in front end engineering, and I loved it a lot. And I was like, yeah, uh, this is cool. But yeah, that's my story in short.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like, you got in it and you had to figure out at first whether you like it or not, and ultimately you did find your field. So this is also something I think we should take into consideration, that it may not come to you right away, like it happened with Dom, and he went on to be great at what he did.
Yeah,
So
but just wanted to add that it doesn't depend only on the field, but also on the company. So you can end up in a bad company and think, oh, coding is not for me. But it's just because you work with boring people and boring projects in all technologies, and yeah, you just like don't like that.
yeah,
So yeah, don't like the field is just massive, and there are so many companies. So you need to like try some things and experiment because before you can say for good like okay that's really not for me.
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Now I will. So to the topic of today, I didn't mention it earlier. That's on me. It's how do you learn So how do you start learning a language if you already have been coding prior to that? Ziad, you're next. So why or how did you start learning? Why did you get in tech? How did you start learning how to code? I
Yeah,
didn't write this. Sorry, my bad.
yeah, no, it's a great question. So for me, so my both my parents were actually kind of sort of involved in tech in some way. My dad worked at Microsoft for like a very long time in the early kind of 2000s. So I grew up like knowing about the tech field, even if I wasn't like personally directly involved in it from a pretty early age. And it was kind of interesting because like when I was really young, like elementary, middle, and high school, both my parents were obviously like tech is the way to go and all that, and obviously being like super young, I was like, no, I'm rebellious. I'm gonna do something else. You guys did tech. I want to go into a different field. And eventually, what happened is I took a computer science class in high school, and I it was like an elective kind of course that a lot of people needed to take, and the very first one was like kind of like that drag and drop coding too. It wasn't actually like typing. I think it was called like Scratch or Snap or something. And at that time, that kind of like really introduced me to the fact that you could do so much with a computer, which was like super cool to me. Um, and like before that I knew like what computer science was and what coding was and that you could like build stuff, but I had never actually like seen it in action. So being able to go into a class like that and like we built like games and stuff like that, that was pretty fun and got to show it off in front of the rest of the class. That really pushed me to realize that first of all, like I liked it, and second of all is like finally something that I felt that I was kind of like I was pretty good at initially. So it was kind of exciting for me to get to apply. Like I was always more of like a math and science person rather than like an English and history person. And there was like finally like something that was actually fun to do that also utilized those skills, So I ended up like self teaching myself a lot of other like coding languages after that. So like I similar to kind of Dom, I went into web development. I started learning HTML, CSS, React, all that kind of stuff, and that's where I really had my eyes open to the fact that like I can build real projects that real people, everyday people like me and you can use, and I can do it all from like the comfort of my home, which is pretty cool to me. So yeah, that was kind of like how I initially got started and why I got started. It was really fun to me to be able to build side projects and show them off and stuff like that. So fast forward lot of years post college and all that, and yeah, here I am. I work as a software engineer now, and I couldn't love it more. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's really interesting. Like you grew up in tech. Like this is a thing that you've known your whole life. I think it's pretty fascinating, especially now that you are where you are today as well. Yeah, how did
Your
I get?
story, Luis.
Yeah, my story. Um, yeah, it's really so I did grow up. I didn't really I wasn't really with computers a lot. Let's say like we had a computer at home, but no one ever used that thing. I would have rather played video games on my Nintendo or something. I never bothered a lot with the computer. And yeah, growing up, I wasn't really like in technology like that. I was just I don't know. I had other interests. And in university, I did environmental sciences. So that's like in a completely unrelated field. Like we do a lot of statistical analysis, and that is where programming came in for me. My first experience with it, I had to do like data analysis for my thesis, and I picked the most horrible programming language ever. That's I had to choose between R and Python, and I picked R. Don't ask me why. I probably would have made a different choice today, but I picked R. And yeah, I just started, I don't know, plotting graphs and doing the two-way ANOVA and that type of things. Two-way ANOVA, it's called? Yeah. And yeah, after I was done with the thesis, I didn't really do much programming after that. Um, and then when I was doing my master's, then I got more involved with it because I was doing a study which required, yeah, it was urban systems engineering, and for that, like building smart systems of houses and things like that, you needed programming. So I started programming more seriously. I took courses on Codecademy. That's how I started. Really difficult to learn, especially if you're doing it on your own without guidance. When you get stuck, you go on Stack Overflow and look for something, but it's difficult. And yeah, that's how I kept learning. I was fascinated by how it all works. Like I wasn't really in it. I mean, I have worked with drop and drop websites before, but actually writing the HTML and CSS was mind blowing for me. Um, yeah, that's how, yeah, why I started. Yeah, why I started. I was just interested in smart systems modeling, and that's how I got into it. Yeah. Okay, so we're here every Wednesday, by the way, at 9:30 p.m. PST. Um, we answer code relating questions. If you guys want, you can drop your questions in the chat. Drop a gift for us if you think our answer was good enough, or just if you want to show appreciation for us. And yeah. Oh, and give us a follow if you haven't. So the next question that would be, why should someone start learning code? And since we went with Ziad first, no, we went with Dom first. We go with Ziad first for this one. Why should someone start learning code?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously, thanks for the gift. We're obviously biased because everybody here loves coding. So I think to try to give like a little bit of an unbiased answer, I think coding opens up a lot of different opportunities. Because like the world these days is really run like the biggest companies in the world are technology companies. The companies that really make the biggest impact on like our everyday lives are technology companies, and I think that coding is a way to kind of like enter that field, or like have like a door into that field and be a part of that impact yourself. For example, you have a company like Apple, which like really manufactures the world's phones, and you have companies that are making cars like Tesla, for example, and like if you just live in the world, you'll interact with one of these technologies companies. Or technologies products like on a daily basis, which means that like if you work in them, you're really going to be impacting a lot of people's lives. And I think what's interesting about coding is that it's like a way to enter the field, but it doesn't like necessarily mean that you have to like, if you're just not a coding person, like I've known personally a lot of people that start out as like software engineers at a lot of big companies, but then they transition their role into like, maybe if they're more into design, there's like people that go into design. There's people that go into product management, which is like if you really like talking with people and managing the product from the beginning to the end. There's opportunities there too, but all of those people usually start out as software engineers just so they like understand the tech world in a sense, and also understand like what's possible of being built versus what's not possible. Like for example, some of the best designers that I've worked usually are very familiar or have worked directly with React before, because and because they started out as engineers, and those are the best designers because they know like when they're building a design for some of the engineers to implement, they kind of have an understanding of what it's going to take to actually build that, and they know what's like best for the customer, but also best for the engineer as well to be able to like implement pretty quickly. So I think like even if you're not super into like programming when you start out, if you just want to like get into tech and you see like the power that's out there, then I think you learn coding, you get into an engineering position, and then you kind of see what you like from there. Because once you kind of get into tech, you'll also realize that there's so many different roles that are like available to run a tech company, from quality assurance all the way to design and product management, as I mentioned. So I think coding is the best thing in the world, but I'm biased, of course. So but
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like it's hard to I'm biased as well. Like just like what you said earlier, like you or not what you said, but I think like for me, I was just fascinated with that aspect. That you just write lines of code and build things. That was really fascinating to me. So yeah, as you said, also you to get in tech, you don't really if you feel like learning code is like the most that's the basic way to start, even if you don't want to be an engineer, if you want to go down design and things like that, yeah, it's necessary. Dom, you're up.
Yep. So the question is why should you start learning coding? And I would answer that like the biggest answer is technology is like it's just starting to arise. We were still like quite underdeveloped technologically, no matter like how advanced this looks like, but we're just on the start. It's been here for what like couple of decades. So yeah, like we'll see crazy stuff with technology in our lives, like unimaginable in this moment. So if technology will be part of everything, it already is like part of almost everything, but it's just gonna be part of literally everything, and it's definitely the future, and it's an exciting future that you can build. So yeah, it's definitely future proof. There's also like so many things you can do there. You can just start coding and then like just enter a great company, and I don't know, you can move to be a project manager or designer or anyone else there, because yeah, it's way easier to make that progress if you already are in a company. And I would suggest, like, if you have that urge to learn to code, and if you play around with it, and it doesn't need to be like extremely fun to you, because who knows which kind of tutorials you will stumble on. But if it's not terrible to you, if it's not extremely boring, and if you don't hate it, then go on, because like some things seem repellent just because they're complex and you don't understand them immediately, and this is just so huge that it will be complex. But so yeah, I would suggest like go on. But if you have something like it's cool for you to build stuff, and it's cool for you to code and run those algorithms and whatever you will be doing, HTML or with whatever you will start, then definitely do it, because you have something for it, and it's worth going. And of course, we have all the other reasons why somebody should learning to code, and that's like, yeah, it's just the future. Conditions are really great. It's flexible. Salaries are great, and but yeah, eventually it's up to you, of course. If you want to get into coding just because of those working conditions, then don't, because you will hate it. But find something else you want to do in life, because this will just be too painful. Otherwise, yeah, give it a go. It's a super cool thing to build that world, especially because so few people actually build that world and know how to build it and have the privilege to build it. So it feels like you know more in a way, because you know that digital world and you don't see it like only as, I don't know, a TikTok app. You see it more like, oh, I know what's behind that TikTok app and what's behind internet and what's behind networking. And it's just like, it's really cool when you can like visualize and know what's actually behind those things. And yeah, especially in the future when we'll have like metaverses and everything based on blockchain, and like when internet will actually have value, not right now, because right now you can copy paste everything, so everything is worthless. If you could copy paste a Ferrari would worth nothing. So yeah, like that's why everything is worthless, because you can copy paste everything. But blockchain finally allows us to not be able to copy paste everything, and that digital scarcity will eventually dominate. And that's gonna be like exciting new worlds, and that's gonna just happen in like next 10 years with like blockchain and AR, VR, metaverses, and like in 20, 30, 40, 50, it's gonna be crazy. So yeah, you can join that ride and build that crazy world. It's definitely gonna be fun.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you that technology is the future, and it's fascinating because we are at the beginning of it. Like this period in history, we are going to remember it like the age where technology took off, you know. I think it's fascinating to live in that time, and yeah, to thank you for your answer, Dom. To answer the question myself, it's what Guy said, like it's the future, and because of that, I think everyone should know a thing or two about it. I'm of course, if not everyone is going to learn at the same rate and all of that, I get that, but you will start to see the world in a completely different light. And yeah, knowing how to actually code things, program things, I think that's like a skill that's going to be needed for a very long time now. We have some questions in the chat, and I will go with the first one. Uh, what do you think about C++ as a programmer? Who wants to go first in this one?
I can. Although, as far as I can see, the question is, what do you think about C++ as a first language?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So on that,
What did I say?
as a programmer. Yeah,
I
no worries. So
yeah
yeah,
yeah yeah.
what do you think about C++ as a first language? Personally, I think that C++ might be an overkill for the first language, because C++ is really hard and it stays as one of the hardest languages to learn, and you won't be able to do so many practical things with it immediately. So if C++ is good, in my opinion, if you are studying computer science, or if you're gonna spend 4 or 5 years in college, then it's good, because you have the time. But if you want to break into tech, C++ is probably not the best option to start. It's probably easier to start with JavaScript or Python or something like that. C++ is needed for game development, definitely. Although I'm not that experienced in like that industry, but I think it is. Yeah, it's probably way harder to break into tech by learning C++ and Unity and going to and going to game development than just like break into, I don't know, web development on it or any other software development. So I don't know if you want to add something, guys, for that.
Yeah.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think it's definitely one of the more difficult languages, but at the same time you do get some value out of just like learning the language, because you start to like really understand some low level concepts. Like you're never going to deal with pointers when you're working in JavaScript, but you will encounter some of those concepts in C++. And it is obviously applicable, especially if you want to do more low level work, like if you're really into like embedded systems or more like hardware engineering and stuff like that. Then knowing like C and C++ is definitely valuable. But if you're talking about it like as a starting programming language, I definitely have to side with Dom on this one, and I think Dweez as well, in terms of it's a little it's a little dense. And if you just want to learn how to program, I'd definitely start with like Python or JavaScript.
Yeah, I also agree with you guys. It's definitely there are for beginners there are many other languages you can learn that are easier. Um, yeah, it's like what Dom said. If you want to break into tech, go find other languages. If you're planning on staying 5 years in university, then it should be fine for you. Okay, the next question. I want to learn HTML by my own. Is it a good idea? What do you guys think about this one?
I think it is definitely because HTML is probably one of the simplest technologies you can learn. So it's perfect for start. You can just play around with those tags and make some pretty simple website. Of course, it will be ugly website because HTML is just like structure of the page. So it's like, I don't know, it's like flat plane. So flat plan. So you have like, I don't know, two bedrooms, two bathrooms, a living room or something like that. But just a plan. If you want to style it, that's CSS, and then you need to like decorate it and put, I don't know, couch inside and nice desk and nice floors and everything. So yeah, look at HTML more for that structure. So your page, of course, will look ugly, but that's because it's just structure. And then I would, uh, I would definitely suggest like continue like and style it a bit with CSS later. And yeah, I can see a comment HTML isn't a programming language, and that is yeah, it's I don't think there's an answer to that because if you Google it, you'll find like some people state it is a programming language, some state it's not. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it is, or if it's not. It's just some code that you need to know. So I don't know, like you can call it programming language or not, but it's still like some code that you need to know.
Yeah. Ziad, what do you think?
Yeah, HTML is definitely one of those that you definitely can learn on your own. I think that was the question, so I would encourage you to get started. And HTML is also like a gateway to a bunch of other concepts. Like when you learn HTML, as Dom said, you'll find yourself wanting your website not to look ugly, so you'll go learn CSS. And once you learn CSS, you'll see a lot of people online talking about like React or Vue.js or Angular or some framework. So like going and learning that is also super useful. And I personally think like being a web developer is a superpower because that means you can like build literally anything. Like if you just have like an idea for a product or something you think that would look cool, you can easily go and build it. It's also a good gateway if you want to do like mobile stuff. Like there's React Native now out there that you can like create like Android and iPhone apps if you want to. So yeah, like HTML is definitely like a very good entryway, and it's very learnable online. There's so many resources, and if you want to get more advanced, there's boot camps and stuff like that. But just purely learning HTML, I mean, um, there's tons of like YouTube and courses out there online that you can take. So I definitely encourage it as well.
Yeah, same. As opposed to C++, HTML, it's really, I think it's the best way to go in to get in tech. I agree with you guys. Uh, okay, so the next question is how to get remote work from Africa. Now, since I have not lived and gotten a remote job from Africa, I will rephrase this question. Uh, so, how is it like to work remotely as an engineer? Like you are a software engineer, but you work from home. Do you work from home full time or part time? What are your experiences with that? Let's go with Dom for this one.
How is it like to? Yeah, so currently I'm not employed for anyone, so I'm self-employed. So yeah, that just like brings me a lot of flexibility. But when during my last job, so it was a remote job. I went to the office like I don't know once in 2 weeks just to like be there and see people and yeah, I definitely prefer like like remote jobs, and the same like answering like how to get a remote job from Africa. I also don't know because I was never in that situation. But I would suggest like with a lot of things like try Googling just like remote jobs and then see because there are so many websites for like remote jobs. It's like just Google like remote developer's job or remote software engineering jobs, and I hope you will be able to see them because the world is becoming more and more remote. And I know when I was applying for remote companies, they just say that location doesn't matter. So I don't know if something is specific with Africa or not, but I didn't see a post where they said nobody from Africa can apply. I've seen some countries, some companies require a specific time zone, or they require just specific countries. I don't know. You can see like some companies in the US will only have like US remote jobs, but they need to be based in the US. So yeah, personally, I've never seen jobs where they say like you cannot apply if you're from Africa. So I would just say apply to regular remote jobs like remote.io, Remotive, and things like that. There's just Google. I don't know now from my head, but just Google like remote software engineering jobs, and I'm sure you'll see like a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's most of the times like I know there are some countries, there are certain platforms that where it's just not available for remote jobs. But as Dom said, if you look for, yeah, use Google, I'm pretty sure you'll find something on that. We are here every Wednesday, 9:30 p.m. PST. Drop your questions in the chat if you have any. And yeah, drop a follow if you haven't up till now. And gifts, they're important. So I will go to the next question. Where can I learn code? I'll go with this one. I'll go first with this one. Where can I learn code? Many places on the internet. There are a lot of people that give courses on Udemy or Codecademy, or be it at Practicum. We have a coding bootcamp. There are different things you can do. You can take free courses. You have to do all the learning on your own. There are coding boot camps. There are paid courses where you will receive a bit more guidance. Boot camps are more new. You have learning sessions where you have it in sprints, so you learn the theory and then you do sprints where it's coding, a lot of coding. You will get your code reviewed for you. And these are things that you will not get at a free coding course or at a paid coding course. So if you are looking to really break into tech and put time aside and really start coding and sticking to it, boot camps are the best ways to one of the best ways to go around it. Do you guys have anything to add to that?
Not from my end. I think you hit it all. I mean, I personally learned, as I said, like on online websites initially, like Codecademy and Coursera. But I've worked with so many people that have like come out of boot camps and have gone on to be like very successful engineers. So I think as long as you always have like a learning mindset and are like open to trying non-traditional ways of learning, whether it's like reading on your own or taking online courses or going through boot camps, I think that you're gonna do very well. So I think it's more important to like narrow down what you want to do. Like if you want to go into engineering, like do you want to be a data science, web developer, backend developer, etc. And then you'll find that there's so many resources, especially as you mentioned, like within Practicum, we have so many different courses and stuff like that on various aspects of software engineering. So I'd definitely check it out.
Yeah. So there's this question from the chat right here. I think it's an interesting one. Sort of from human. Do I need to learn JS before getting started with React.js? JavaScript whiz. What do you think?
I definitely think you should learn JavaScript before starting to learn React because React is a library written fully in JavaScript. And if when you use React, you use JavaScript all the time because React is written in JavaScript. So if you don't do that, if you start immediately doing both, I would suggest that only if you are an experienced backend engineer or you know some other language is really good, and then like you don't want to lose time and you start working for a company and they need you and you just like want to like do both things at once. And there it's probably fine. You still it's gonna be a bit confusing, but it will be fine. But if you're like a beginner and just like breaking into tech, then it's better to learn JavaScript. You don't need to like learn JavaScript for 2 years, but just like have some basic core knowledge of JavaScript concepts. Then React is gonna be way easier because React has a quite a big learning curve because it's a component based way of building apps, and React has it's not only React. You have so many different libraries for routing, for state management, for this and that, and it's just like plus all the React concepts and all the like hooks and everything, and it's just like so much. And if you don't know anything about React and anything about JavaScript, it will be complex. So you can do it, of course, and people are doing it. It's not like they don't do it, but I would suggest JavaScript first because even if you think, oh, I'm gonna be faster if I learn two things at once, but then it might take you 6 months to get from zero to some beginner stage. While in other scenario, it can take you 2 months to learn JavaScript and 2 months to learn React and be in that beginner stage in 4 months, just because things will be more clear to you. Otherwise, you'll be seeing those complex concepts of JavaScript or even simple concepts, but you won't understand them because everything will be new. And I definitely suggest JavaScript first.
Yeah. So, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, you definitely need to learn JavaScript first. I think just like for basic syntax purposes, because like React already has a lot of new concepts that you're going to get introduced with, even when like you do know JavaScript. So I feel like it's going to be pretty hard for you to pick up a lot of those concepts while not knowing JavaScript. To add on to that, you definitely also need like HTML and CSS fundamentals to be able to learn React. So that's really the order of the things that I would learn. It's like learn HTML, then add some styling with CSS, learn CSS, then jump into JavaScript so that you know kind of like a programming language, and then go into React.js. The only exception I would add to that is like if you already know something like Python, for example, or like another programming language, and you're pretty like you understand like the fundamentals of programming, you know, like what's a variable, what's a function, all that kind of stuff, then maybe you could just jump straight into React.js after you've learned HTML and CSS. But you're probably still gonna have like you're gonna have to pick up some like syntactical differences between whatever programming language you're coming from and JavaScript. So with that in mind, like you're never going to stop learning JavaScript anyways, so you might as well like pick up the fundamentals and then learn the tricks, like tricks of the trade as you go along.
Yeah. So this is coming off of what you just mentioned. You know Python, for example, and you can jump straight into React.js. The next question is, how do you start learning web development if you know Python? So let's say someone's first language was Python. How do they go on for with learning web development from that? What would you guys advise them?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, as I mentioned, you either way you need to learn HTML and CSS. So that's like where I would start. Is just learn basic HTML, as we said earlier. You can learn it, you know, on your own, online, whatever, and you'll learn how to make like a basic web page, and you'll kind of understand like what the structure of a website looks like. From there, you definitely want to go into CSS and understand like how styling works, because regardless of what frameworks you use or like tools you use, you're gonna like encounter CSS concepts in one way or another. So learn that, because that is like the root fundamentals of web development. And then from there, it's kind of up to you. Like if you're really strong in Python and you feel like, JavaScript is going to come easy to you, it's just a little bit of a different syntax of declaring things, but you can kind of pick it up. Then I would jump straight into like React, or if you, for whatever reason, really want to learn another framework, but like learn a web development either framework or library like React. And from there, I think you're like an established web developer. So if you really want to learn like JavaScript beforehand, or you have no programming experience before learning HTML and CSS, then definitely learn JavaScript standalone first. It'll help you like ease your mind into basic programming concepts. So that's what I would recommend. So I wanted to ask you, Dom. I think there's like Python web development now or something, or there's like ways you could develop websites with Python. I'm not sure if you're like familiar with that stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, I think there is Django, and Django is like web development framework for Python. So you can do that, although it depends. It's like still many companies use front-end frameworks based on JavaScript, because it's just because browsers understand JavaScript, and it's nicer to do it in JavaScript. It feels more native and everything. So if you're like experienced at Python, then probably stuff will gonna be easier for you if you like go through that route like Django. But I don't know, honestly, like you won't have that much problem learning JS and front end stuff, like front end stuff. So I think, because like you'll need to use in Django, you'll need to use like HTML and CSS too anyway. So like the only difference is Python versus JavaScript. So yeah, up to you. But I would like, if you need it for a longer term, then learn JavaScript. If you need to do something quickly and you know Python, then pick Django.
Yeah. Does Django compile down to JavaScript, or like what does it do? You need JavaScript in the end for browsers. So do you know what it does?
Yeah, probably. I don't know those, but yeah, it must, because browsers don't understand Python, so it must be JavaScript in the end.
Cool.
Yeah. Next question. This one I don't know much about some of these what I'm gonna mention, but after learning Selenium, testing, and Java, what do you suggest next? If it makes sense for you guys. It doesn't for me.
Well, if you are into testing, those are like testing frameworks, and you have Java and everything, maybe you can. That's also not a bad option to break into tech. Just apply to QA roles, so quality assurance. You will be testing software, and you will be testing it. Usually, you don't just test it manually, but you also like do some automated code solution and write tests, so you still code. So start applying for QA jobs. Why not? Because it's easier to get a QA job than a developer job. So it's even easier to break into tech, and then you can move later to coding if you want, because you already say you know Java. So yeah, like you can go to a company, work for a couple of months, and then just like ask them, hey, can I move to development, or can I do more development, or half or whatever. But yeah, QA is a nice way to break into tech, and to be honest, sometimes it can be the fastest, just because it's easier to get a job.
All right, thank you for your answer. See, even I learned something from that, so thank you. Next question is, where can I stay up to date on best coding practices? Who wants to go for this one?
Where to stay up to date for best coding practices? Well, I'm subscribed to a couple of newsletters, so it's mostly about frontend. So it's like JavaScript Weekly. Other one is called Frontend Focus, and that's like a nice dose of like new things that are happening, and also you have like interesting articles there and everything. Then Google has its blog. You have dev.to and a lot of like great articles there. So yeah, you can follow it there. I'm sure there are like many other blogs and newsletters you can do. But I love newsletters just because then it's just like a weekly dose of new stuff in my inbox, and it's always something interesting. So yeah, newsletters work for me.
Yeah. I also think like building side projects continuously is a good thing. Like I knew managers even at companies that even though they had like stepped back from coding a little bit, in their free time they would still like read up on open source projects and try to like use them to try to stay up to date with like what modern techniques are when it comes to their kind of area of choice. Like if you're a web developer, there's like for my like role, I'm only using like React, TypeScript, and Node.js. But at the same time, there's like newer things coming out, like Next.js, for example, is like this new trendy thing. So like I'd go build a side project with it and try to like figure out why people are excited about it, for example, and like understand what's the what's new basically. So I think like constantly either reading or like trying to get your hands dirty and building just like something simple with new technologies is a pretty good way to stay up to date and relevant.
All right. Well, thank you for your insights. Uh, I will go back to the questions list because originally we had a question list. We had a lot of questions in the chat, and I think we answered all of them. So we'll go back to the list. And the next question is, what are some basic coding concepts like? Because earlier, I don't know who said, you mentioned like coding concepts, but when you say coding concepts, like what are some basic ones that you need to know to break into tech?
What are
Don?
so basic coding concepts that break into tech. Mm, it's a long list. It's just like a long list of things. So for here, maybe it's better to like say, if we talk specifically about programming languages, then there are some things you need to know for all the languages, and that's like what variables are, different conditions like
Yeah.
if, else, then you have loops that are extremely important. So like for loop, while loop, and each language has some other like specific also like functions, probably objects, and it's a bit hard question because each language is so specific and each field is so specific that it's just like
Yeah.
hard to go through like concepts which you need to learn. So, but maybe if
Yeah,
somebody else want to take it.
yeah, no, it's what you said. It's a long list of things. Like for the basics, I feel like there are so many things that you just need to know, like for like loops, and I'm not sure like if like they considered algorithms, like these topics each have their own basics, but yeah, like you have loops, you have interfaces for object-oriented programming and objects, and it's a long list of basic small things that you need to know. I see Ziyad got kicked out. Let me invite him again. Yeah, I just sent him the invitation, so he'll be back soon. And I will just quickly keep on going through the list of questions. This one is, yeah, what are the fundamentals of coding? I think it can relate a bit to the previous question. Yeah, if you go back to the basic concepts that that you need to know when you're coding. These, I would say, are the fundamentals. Like the basic knowledge is just it just needs to be there. Ziad didn't get the did touch upon this earlier. What coding languages should I learn first? We mentioned HTML and CSS are the best way to break into tech. So I will go now to, we had one more question in the chat, and this one was, is programming good for highly sensitive people?
That's that's an interesting question. But I would say yes, because you are like hidden behind the screen. You can work remotely. You don't need to work a lot with people. So yeah, if by highly sensitive you mean introvert, then it's probably the ideal job for you. Uh, but especially considering like with other fields. So I think it is. Many people say that coding is as crazy stressful or anything, but when I actually compare it to some other fields, I don't think it's that's stressful. It is, of course, but at the end of the day, there are like more stressful jobs, and like especially I don't know. Imagine doctors. That's a really stressful job because like one mistake can literally like ruin somebody's life, if not even worse. And like one your mistake will probably like break your local build. And if you make 6 mistakes in a row, then you'll break the production. But it's really hard. And even if you break the production, you revert it. So it's not the end of the world. It is stressful, of course. In some companies, you have deadlines and everything. But if you are compared with other fields and talking with people in other fields, I would say that like coding has the best work-life balance, and it's just the vibe in the company is nice. So even if you are sensitive, nobody will mock you for that, or you won't feel undervalued just because you're sensitive. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I've seen some like very much introverts, like people who definitely dislike interacting with other people, and they like a lot of those guys go on to be like really really high up in the company and be like some of the best like engineers. Like they've gone into like staff engineer positions and stuff like that. So it's you can definitely be like an introverted person or like enjoy kind of like alone time a little bit more than socializing and still do very very well in tech. Hopefully, yeah, if that's what you mean by sensitive. If by sensitive you mean like you get feelings hurt easily or something, that's like a different story. But in general, I think tech is like what you make of it. Like there's really room for everybody. If you're like introverted, you can keep going down the engineering path. If you really love working with people and being like extroverted and socializing, there's like a lot of folks that go into like engineering management later on in their careers and stuff like that. So there's really a place for everyone, I think.
Although socializing with people will always help you in life. So if you are introvert by nature, don't use that as an excuse to never talk with people, because talking with people will get you far. And both like being an extrovert or an introvert, nothing is perfect. Like you should be somewhere in the middle and be able to be introvert and with yourself and work on yourself, but also to be with other people, because like great things are achieved together in teams with other people. So just that's more like a life advice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you for the advice. So we have one question left. We are here every Wednesday, 9:30 p.m. PST. Join our live next week if you just tuned in late or you forgot it was a live. It's 9:30 p.m. PST. So I will get in the last question. Someone asked in the chat, as a junior developer, where do you find a good paying remote job?
I think that junior developers, honestly, like the market is pretty wide open because there's a lot of junior developer positions that open up. Like if you're higher up in a company, that's like there's less positions at companies basically. But in terms of like specifics, because I obviously recently like was in that position and applying to a lot of jobs, is that you really have to just like work on the basics, like get somebody to review your resume, get get your cover letter templates in place and that kind of stuff. And then you really just have to like mass apply and play the numbers. There's so many software engineering positions out there. Like even if you spend every day applying to 10 positions, you're not going to like apply to every single possible position. And that's just like, I'm just applying like in the United States. There's like also global like positions that are remote now and stuff like that. So the trick is really just like go on websites like LinkedIn, go on websites like Indeed. There's a website called Handshake if you're like still like even more like you're in kind of like a college environment. And all the, like a lot of companies will sponsor their positions on those websites. So you got to go, you got to like hit your numbers. I think when I was applying to three companies per day. And by three, it means like you're tailoring your resume for the position, you're writing a cover letter, that kind of stuff. And also like, leak coding at least one question a day to kind of get on your, be your best when you end up getting an interview. And you have to like understand that it is like a percentage game. So if it's 1% of all applications will be 1% of applications will be interviews, then you got to apply to 100 to get one interview. So you got to kind of just play your numbers that way. But yeah.
Yeah, thanks for your answer, Dom. Do you have anything you want to add?
Well, I think Ziad wrapped it up so good that I can't think of anything.
Well, okay, yeah, thank you. I also don't have anything to add except to thank everyone for being here. As I said earlier, we're here every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. PST. So join us, drop a follow if you haven't. And yeah, thank you guys for being here. Any last additions?
Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining in. Also, by the way, it's 9:30 a.m. Pacific time.
9:30 a.m.
Yeah.
Didn't get the time right. I'm in CET, so I'm always confused about it. Yeah, it's 9:30 a.m. PST,
Awesome.
Wednesday.
Yeah, thanks everyone for attention and your questions, and see you in a week.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you. See you. Bye.